With the NFL draft behind us and training camp only a few short months away, I feel like now is a really good time for us to look at every single NFL team and try to evaluate what are these teams' biggest question marks going into the training camps and going into the NFL season. I think in this video, I'm going to go over the AFC teams, and then I'm going to save the NFC teams for a video that I might upload tomorrow, or maybe even just a few short hours after this one. The first team that I'm going to start with, since I'm a fan of this team and I follow it pretty heavily, the Cleveland Browns. I think the biggest question mark for the Cleveland Browns going into the NFL season is their health. Browns fans and media alike will tell you, hey, we won 11 games and got into the playoffs with 26% of our salary cap on IR. We're going to get all of those guys back, and we're going to have an amazing season this year. And that's completely valid. Completely valid. But on the flip side of that, you also had 26% of your salary cap on IR. And considering how some of these injuries played out, the likelihood of something like that happening again is not exactly low. Because you look at Deshaun Watson, back-to-back shoulder injuries last season, both of them not really too related to each other. And considering his style of play and the fact that he's not getting any younger, him having another shoulder injury or some similar type of injury because of the hits that he likes to take is a very likely scenario. Now, like I said, I'm a huge fan of the team, so I would hope that that doesn't happen, because Deshaun Watson being good puts us over the hump of being a great team to an actual Super Bowl contending team. But just to be objective here, I mean, it's not exactly a low chance that he doesn't get injured again. And then on top of the fact Nick Chubb suffered a horrific knee injury that also just happens to be the second of its kind that he has suffered throughout his football career. So on top of the fact that we don't exactly know what he's going to look like when he does come back, there's also the chance that, maybe not having his leg literally fold in half, but there's also a chance that he could have knee issues moving forward. And then Jack Conklin, I mean, if he plays more than 7 games, I will be genuinely surprised. Jed Wills has had his injury issues lately. Denzel Ward is always finding himself banged up at some point in the season. And then adding in all the little injuries that tend to happen to NFL teams throughout a football season, the Cleveland Browns' health really has to be put into question coming into this next season. But if they are able to be healthy and Nick Chubb is able to, be himself again, etc., this team's going to be dangerous, bro. And we're staying in Ohio for this next one, because the next one is the Bengals. And my question going into training camps and this NFL season is, how do they handle the Trey Hendrickson and T. Higgins situation? Because these are two really, really important players to this team that are both looking to be traded. And I think if you even lose one of them, you're going to be a much worse team because of it. But God forbid they lose both of them. You lose pretty much your only elite defender and only good defensive lineman, on top of the fact that you're losing your top 15 wide receiver, T. Higgins, after already losing Tyler Boyd, who is also very important to this offense. Yeah, it's not looking too good for Cincinnati. But on the bright side, Joe Burrow has come out recently voicing that he thinks that both of them should be paid what they're worth. So maybe that starts swaying the front office to give them their money. Who knows? But that is something that they're going to have to figure out. And then for the Ravens, I have their defense, actually. I understand that this defense was ranked probably the second best defense in the NFL last year behind the Cleveland Browns. But they lost Geno Stone, who had stepped in for Marcus Williams, because Marcus Williams is another player that just can't seem to remain healthy. And Geno Stone was really good in that role. And they lost him in free agency. They lost Patrick Queen, and is one of the most versatile linebackers in the NFL, and performed a lot of duties for this defense that Roquan Smith himself simply cannot do. nor can anyone that's going to come in to replace Patrick Queen. So that's going to be a real issue for them. And on top of the fact that they lost Jadeveon Clowney, which I know a lot of people aren't too high on Clowney these days, but he's still a really good run stopper. He was still one of their better pass rushers on the team, specifically on the defensive line. And then back to the Geno Stone thing, they haven't brought in anybody to fill in that Geno Stone role of replacing Marcus Williams when Marcus Williams eventually gets hurt. So they lost a lot of depth. They lost their elite linebacker. In my opinion, their best linebacker. They lost some pass rush. I think this defense is still going to be good, but is it going to be as good or even nearly as good as last year? Who knows? Who knows? And then to wrap up the AFC North, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers rookie class. I think the Steelers drafted a lot of good players. It's just I'm really not too sure on how these players are actually going to fit into this team. Like Roman Wilson, for example. Roman Wilson is going to have a good NFL career as a slot receiver and working the middle of the field. But you're going to a team with Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson, both of whom are absolutely allergic to the middle of the field. In fact, I think if they do throw to the middle of the field, they'll probably catch on fire. Blue moons will come, meteors will start falling, hell will freeze over, all of that will start happening, simply because they throw to the middle of the field. So, I just don't know how productive Roman Wilson is going to be as a Pittsburgh Steeler, at least in his rookie year. And then on the other end, their first round pick, Troy Fautanu, I think he's a good player, but I also think he's going to be a good player as a guard as opposed to a tackle, because I just don't like the way that he plays tackle. I'm not going to lie. He's one of those offensive tackles who has really good hands, good hand placement, nice footwork, really fast feet, and those are all amazing qualities to have. But when those are your only tools for actually beating defensive ends, when you have the inconsistent anchor that he has, when you're able to get beat inside, when you stop your feet because you're trying to have a harder jab, I don't love the pick. I don't love the pick. Again, I would love him as a guard because a lot of these issues would instantly go away because of the fact that he's not actively trying to keep up with fast defensive ends. But the Steelers don't necessarily need a guard. What they need is a left tackle, and that's exactly what they drafted. But for him to have these faults while having his primary opponents as a Pittsburgh Steeler being Trey Hendrickson and Myles Garrett, sometimes Zadarius Smith, hell, even Ogbo Okoronkwo sometimes, it's just not a good recipe, in my opinion. Now, maybe he proves me wrong, but this is just where I am right now. So, future Corey here. I recorded all this audio before rookie minicamps happened, and so at the time, I didn't see the fact that a lot of Troy's reps were on the right side. And so if the Steelers decide to put Troy on the right side and move Broderick Jones to the left side, which there was a lot of buzz in the offseason, well, before the draft, there was a lot of buzz about Jones being moved to the left side. If Troy plays on the right side, dude, I really hate that for him. Because again, despite all of the faults that I personally see with him, a lot of his strengths do revolve around stuff like foot speed and hand speed and just, his hand work, all of that. And when you ask someone to go from one side to the other side, that adjustment to how your feet and hands are supposed to work is really what holds people back from being as good on both sides. So not only does he have these weaknesses that he already has, but if you move him over to the right side, now you're potentially dampening down the strengths that he does have, which really just puts him at a bigger risk of just not working out for this team. I hate it. I hate the idea of him being on the right side, and I really hope they have him stick to the left. But anyways, back to all the other stuff. And then on top of the fact that they drafted Peyton Wilson, who doesn't even have an ACL in one of his knees, and is 24. Like, don't get me wrong, Peyton Wilson is a really good player as he is right now. But do I think that he's going to last more than 2 years in the NFL before becoming a severely injury-prone player and eventually being kicked out of the league? Hey, man, look, we just going to have to find out with that. But moving on from the AFC North and onto the AFC West, for the Kansas City Chiefs, my number one question for this team is, do they finally fall off? Because we've been waiting on it ever since they got rid of Tyreek Hill. Ever since they got rid of Tyreek Hill, we've been thinking to ourselves, okay, they lost their elite receiver. They didn't really get one back. They're just kind of walking out there with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and a box of scraps. And yet that hasn't held them back from winning 2 Super Bowls since then. But at some point, it's going to have to matter. At some point, you are going to walk out there with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and a bunch of wide receiver threes. And it's not going to work. Is this the year that it finally doesn't work? I understand they drafted Xavier Worthy. I like Xavier Worthy. He's going to develop really nice in this system, and he's going to be a weapon for this team. But he's also a rookie. So I don't know how much I can expect him to be this Kansas City Chiefs secret weapon coming into this season. Maybe his second season and third season. But his rookie year, I just don't see it. It's possible, but I just don't think it's all that likely. So yeah, this is really just my question for him. You know, when do all these faults finally matter enough for them to lose? And then moving on to the Chargers, their offense is a massive question mark for me. Because on one hand, Justin Herbert is very good, but he's also very inconsistent. On another hand, they brought in Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh, both of whom aren't exactly good offensive coaches. And then there's also Joe Alt, who they brought in to be one of their tackles, but they're going to make him switch over to the left side. My fault, excuse me, the right side. They're going to make him switch to the right side after playing left tackle for the last 3 years. And again, I'm a Cleveland Browns guy. I have seen the results of switching a really good tackle to the opposite side, and these results normally aren't that great. So I don't know how good Joe Alt is going to be in this new role. You know, maybe he's elite and he turns out to be everything they want him to be, but there's also the chance that he just becomes a painfully average tackle because of the fact that he is never able to fully adjust his handwork and footwork to the fact that he switched to the right side. But yeah, a lot of questions for this offense. And now moving on to the Raiders. Honestly, my question mark for them is Antonio Pierce. I understand a lot of people love Antonio Pierce because he's a good story, cool personality, etc., etc. But this is the same man that said that you could build a team around Robert Spillane. And so I'm like, how good of a coach could you really be if you truly believe those words that came out of your mouth about Robert Spillane? Robert Spillane's good, but he's not that. He's not Max Crosby, who is literally on the same team. But yeah, and also there's been several points in NFL history where mid-season interim head coaches who become full-time head coaches the next season don't really pan out that well. Again, Browns fan, I went through the Freddie Kitchens era. It was not fun. It was don't even I'm not going back there. Almost had Vietnam flashbacks just now. But anyways, and for the Broncos, my question mark is Garrett Bowles. Are you going to trade Garrett Bowles? Because honestly, me as a Browns guy, I would love to have Garrett Bowles. And I know a lot of other teams would love to have Garrett Bowles. He's on the last year of his deal. He's really good. But you're not going to be very good. So, is this going to be a trade that happens? Because if so, hey, man, come on. Come to the land. And then moving on to the AFC East, my question for the Chiefs was, when will it end? My question mark for the Buffalo Bills is, when will it start? This is a team that has had Super Bowl aspirations ever since they brought in Stephon Diggs to pair up with Josh Allen. And it seems like they always get so close, but then they hit a really rough ceiling. And more times than not, that ceiling has been the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, they did lose Stephon Diggs, but they did bring in Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman. And listen, I'm not a big Keon Coleman guy. I just don't think he's going to work out. But I do understand why you would draft him. I understand why people do think he's going to work out. And I do understand that the massive potential that he has. Dude's a monster at the end of the day. I think Curtis Samuel in this offense could easily be an 1,100-yard wide receiver. Like 7-8 touchdowns. If Keon Coleman is able to be what a lot of people expect him to be, he's going to be so good in this offense. Especially with Josh Allen just being one of those, whatever, he's down there somewhere, chucks the ball downfield type of quarterbacks. And Khalil Shakur has been developing nice in this system. So I do think that the potential to be a really good Super Bowl contender is there. But are they still going to keep hitting the same ceiling that is the Kansas City Chiefs? And then moving on to the Miami Dolphins. Honestly, can y'all just beat good teams? They went like 1-5 last year against playoff teams. They did not look good against actual good competition. Can y'all just do that this season? Please? Please? Like, I love this team. I really like the makeup of this team. This is a very fun team. Just please beat good teams. And then for the Patriots, honestly, my question would be, is Drake May good enough to make up for all the faults that this organization has? I'm not big on Gerard Mayo. I think their front office is just really bad and has been really bad for, honestly, a really long time now. It just didn't really get talked about because Tom Brady was just Tom Brady. These wide receivers aren't very good. The offensive line is okay. The defense is just eh. Like, can Drake May be good enough to make up for all of these faults? Probably not, but hey man, you never know. You never know. And then for the Jets, can Aaron Rodgers still be good? At his old age, coming off of the injury that he just came off of, can he still be a good and healthy quarterback? Because if he can, with this roster, boy, the sky's the limit. And then my question for the Jacksonville Jaguars would be, can you just play good football games at home? Only scoring 9 points against the Chiefs, losing 37-17 to the Houston Texans, losing to the Cincinnati Bengals without Joe Burrow, only scoring 3 points against the 49ers. Like, can you just put on better home game performances than this? And then for the Tennessee Titans, can Will Levis just be a good quarterback? Like a good, decent, serviceable quarterback? Because if he can, honestly, this team could probably be like a smooth 9-8. While I do think that the wide receiver group is just a bunch of names for the sake of being names, I think they oddly fit nice together. The defense is decent. Like, I don't think it's as bad as people thought it was last season. I think it's just kind of good, serviceable. So if Will Levis can be a decent quarterback, then this will probably be a decent team. It's not going to make any noise or anything, but it'll be all right. And then for the Colts, will Anthony Richardson stay healthy? Anthony Richardson, in the games that he played, looked like he was about to take the league over. He looked like he was about to have the same type of season that CJ Stroud had just had. So if he can be healthy this season, plus the developments that his wide receiver room has made, on top of the fact that Shane Steichen is going to have another year under his belt, hey man, these Colts might be kind of good. And then to wrap things up, for the Houston Texans, my number one question mark for this team is Stephon Diggs. Now, when you have been a sports fan for a long time, you start to notice some of the red flags. And this Stephon Diggs trade had a few red flags to me. Because for one, they didn't really get too much back for Diggs. Like, they got a second round pick. And then also on top of the fact that he is coming off of his worst season as a Buffalo Bill. And I think it was even worse than his last season in Minnesota. And he's not getting any younger. I think bro's about to be like 31 this season. But you also consider the fact that for the last 11 games of last year's season, Diggs was only bringing in 51 yards a game. And you round that up to a 17-game season, that's 870 yards. And he only had 3 touchdowns in that time frame too. So, honestly, is Stephon Diggs just washed? Like, not fully washed as of right now, but is he becoming washed and the Bills just went ahead and got rid of him before him being washed up became a problem? Like, I know it's crazy to call someone coming off of an 1,100-yard, 8-touchdown season washed or becoming washed, but I don't know, dude. It's a lot of red flags for me that are trending in that direction. But anyways, that's it for all the AFC teams. Appreciate y'all for stopping by and listening to me yap for however long this video is going to be. I will have much more content on the way, so be on the lookout for that. All of you beautiful and intelligent people that decided to watch this video. And yeah, I'm out. Peace.